Begin, right? Okay. Namaste. Today we discuss the topic, the model of the mind. For this topic is very fundamental to psychology and psychoanalysis. To discuss this topic, today we have with us psychoanalysis consultant, Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Mr. Himanshu Vaidya, can we start with what are the most popular models of the mind in psychoanalysis?
Uh, in psychology, we have various schools. We have the behavioral school, the cognitive school, the information processing school, and the depth psychology school, of which psychoanalysis is a part. Each approach or school has not one but many models of the mind. So we are looking at almost 25 to 30 different models of the mind which have been put in vogue and are popularly discussed in different areas of psychology. Within psychoanalysis, the two popular models of the mind are those propounded by Freud and Jung. Jung propounded one model of the mind in his lifetime. Freud propounded three different models of the mind. Two were structural and one was a dynamic or operative flow model, which is not really seen as a model of the mind, seen more as a concept. But the two popular models of the mind of Freud are the topographical model and the structural model.
Uh, this is we are talking about models which are given by the West mainly. So in the East also, do we have other our own models of the mind?
Yes, we do have. Just as in the West, we have many schools of psychology, and each school has many models of the mind. The same is true in the East also. So, in the East, correspondingly, we have the Sankhya school, we have the Yogic school, we have the Tantra school, we have the Vaishnav school, we have the Shaiv school, and then we have the entire integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo. And each of these schools have their own model of the mind. Some schools even have more than one model of the mind.
Right.
Like the yoga school has more than one model of the mind. And therefore, in the East also we are looking at almost 25 to 30 different models of the mind, out of which few are more popular, just as in the West. So in the West, you have the Freud and Jung's model of mind being very popular. In the East, we have the yoga psychology model, the Sankhya model, the convergence of many worlds model, the Tantra model, and Sri Aurobindo's model. These five models of the mind are very popular, and they are almost taken to be representative five models of a much larger uh, reservoir of knowledge of the East.
Right. You have referred to the idea of a school in psychoanalysis and half a school in psychoanalysis. Now, can you explain that?
Model of the mind is fundamental to any school of psychology, whether it is within psychoanalysis or outside of psychoanalysis. Especially this is more important when we talk of psychotherapy. The reason is this: any school in psychotherapy must have three things very clear in order to be called an independent school of psychotherapy. And the three
Okay.
things are: one, model of the mind, how the mind operates in general, not necessarily in pathology only, but in general. So, a model of the mind. Second, based upon that model of the mind, how do we see pathology developing? So, pathogenesis.
Right.
And the pathogenesis will be based upon the model of the mind. If you look at pathology, the same pathology, let us say paranoia, if you try to give a Jungian explanation of paranoia, you will have to give it in the context of Jung's model of the mind. If we look at it from Freud's point of view, you will have to give an explanation in Freud's model of the mind terms. So one, you have a model of the mind, two, you have pathogenesis, and three, you have the healing method. So pathogenesis flows out of the model of the mind, and the healing method flows out of pathogenesis.
Right.
Now, I call those schools of psychoanalysis as full schools where they have all the three: a model of the mind, pathogenesis based upon the model of the mind, and the healing method based upon pathogenesis. Sigmund Freud's school and Carl Jung's school, they satisfy the criteria of having all the three, and therefore I call them as full schools,
Okay.
full schools of psychoanalysis. If we look at other thinkers like Klein, Winnicott, Bion, Devon Lu, they have Kohut, they have proposed certain phenomena which they believe are responsible for pathology in a particular way. And based upon that pathogenesis, they have prescribed a healing method. But they were not capable of coming out with a model of the mind. So if we look into the Kleinian school, Bionian school, ISTDP school, Kohut school, they don't have a model of the mind in their schools. So they started from observation or discovery of some phenomena and then went on to developing a healing method. So they proposed a pathogenesis which was not known before. They proposed a healing method which was not known before, but they could not propose a model of the mind. And these schools of psychoanalysis, I call them as half schools, who do not have a model of the mind. And it is not easy also to develop a model of the mind. You need a very thorough background in the area, which of course all of them had, even those who could not develop a model of the mind. But apart from that, you need a huge amount of structuring capability,
Right.
a very long self-exploration where you spend more time with yourself, at times even more than the patient, because model of the mind, it is not easy to just create from patients. You have to do a long self-exploration of yourself. And lastly, you must have quite a strong background in philosophy and a very high dose of confidence and healthy narcissism to really pronounce a model of the mind. So there thinkers like Klein, Winnicott, Kohut, Bion, Devon Lu, they were all geniuses, no doubt about it. But uh, they did not have that special capability of developing a very structured model of the mind like Freud and Jung had. And therefore, I classify all psychoanalytic schools into two: the full schools, which have all the three: model of the mind, based on its pathogenesis, based on its healing method, and half schools, which have only the last two: pathogenesis and healing method. They don't have the first part, the model of the mind.
Uh, why do you think the present models of the mind have still proved to be little inadequate?
Uh, Let me answer this with reference to the Western model of the mind first.
Right.
The reasons are many, and some of which are: one, perfect models of the mind don't fall from heaven. They have to be refined to make them more better and make them more comprehensive. The first limitation is the state of knowledge of the creator of the model of the mind. So Freud created his model of the mind when there was X amount of knowledge about the human mind. And based upon X, he created his model of the mind. As time passed by, new knowledge was accumulated. Unfortunately, the after Freud, followers of Freud or others in psychoanalysis could not take that knowledge and modify and develop Freud's model. So the first reason of failure was that those who developed those models with a, a partial knowledge of the psyche. Second reason was the followers could not develop the model further to incorporate new findings. It was beyond their capability intellectually. Third was there was a phenomenological constraint that if Freud believed in the supremacy of the Oedipus complex, he would not look at what somebody else had to say and incorporate into his model. So the development of the model was stalled because of a phenomenological uh, preference, and that became a phenomenological constraint where you fall in love with a phenomena and you are not ready to admit other phenomena into the development of the model. The fourth constraint why the models did not develop was a paradigmatic constraint, that the Western models could not conceive of concepts like prana or life energy, which Jung conceived of but stopped midway, could not go all the way through like the Eastern psychologists did. So this was a Western paradigm's constraint, that they were developing the Western models of the mind within Western paradigm, and that was essentially a paradigm based upon the concept of a rational, hedonistic, biochemical human being. The whole concept of purpose of life being higher than survival and procreation, a spiritual purpose of life, the concept of soul, the concept of spirituality and self-development, all those were out of that paradigm. In the Jungian paradigm, it did come up in some measure, but in Freudian paradigm, it was completely out. So there was a paradigmatic constraint. Even in case of Jung, he also stopped at certain point beyond which he could not go because he could not explore it himself. And beyond what where he was, he would have landed into Eastern mysticism if he took a step forward. So there was fourthly this paradigmatic constraint, and fifth was the intellectual difficulty of bringing together two schools of psychoanalysis proved too much for those who were interested in psychoanalysis in the West. So these were the reasons why the Western models proved inadequate, and uh, large part of that is not because the models did not have the capacity to be developed. It was more a failure of people who could not develop and modify those models in the wake of new findings to create a more integrative and comprehensive models. And when this did not happen, uh, you had models which could not explain phenomena. Like if you put the paranoid schizoid split into Freud's model, how can you explain that in Freud's model? If you put Freud's own concept, own explanation of narcissism, where he says, depression, where he says it occurs because of loss of uh, a narcissistically cathected object with ambivalent relationship to that object. How do you explain his own explanation in terms of his own model? That also became a difficulty, and unfortunately, Freud himself did not solve it. So, because of not giving adequate attention to the model to develop it forward and giving more attention to the clinical work and phenomenological progress, somewhere the development of the model of the mind part of psychoanalysis got stalled, and it became more of a historical antique rather than organic entity which is alive and which you have to develop and nourish. So these were some of the reasons why uh, the Western models of the mind reached a limit and thereafter could not develop any further. And as time passed by, the more they could not explain, the more inadequate they started looking.
As we have talked of the Western models being inadequate, what about the Eastern models also? Why is there inadequacy in them also?
Uh, the Eastern models also have proved to be inadequate for a very different reason. The first is some of the Eastern models, like the yogic model of the mind, have proved to be inadequate because they were too macro and generic. They uh, could not explain micro phenomena. So if you try to ask them to explain, how do you explain the paranoid schizoid split? How do you explain the anal rage? How do you explain the disintegration of the ego? So in terms of the micro phenomena, they found it very difficult to explain. So the first failure inadequacy was many models of mind in the East could not explain specific micro phenomena. Two, most of them were created in the spiritual context. So they were very good in, if you look at human beings and if you divide people into three parts, abnormal, normal, and supernormal, and if we say that every human being has all the three parts in different proportions, then these Eastern models were very good in the supernormal part, reasonably good in the normal part, but they were not very good in the abnormal part. In the abnormal part, they could not map out as precisely the phenomena which were mapped out by the Western psychotherapy explorers. So the specificity was a problem, the micro explanations was a problem, the micro process identification and use was a problem, and lastly, the empiricism was a problem. These models were never tested out in laboratory conditions like the Western models were, and therefore the questions on efficacy and reliability were never answered with much assurance and much confidence. So this was one aspect. The second aspect was some of the models were too deep for an ordinary scholar or uh, researcher to really examine. For example, the Tantra model of the mind or Sri Aurobindo's model of the mind. To understand and explore those models, you have to spend years and years understanding that model. So that was one aspect that very few researchers could understand and then take the step forward to use that model for pathogenesis and healing. I mean, you could take the second step after you understand the model per se.
Right.
Now, the first step itself was so difficult and expressed in a language which was so alien to the West. And the East was not interested in the East for the last 100 years. So this created a strange situation where those who were familiar with the language were not interested in those theories, and those who were interested were not familiar with the language, and there was a general atmosphere of condemnation of the East.
Right.
All this put together created a situation where, except a few spiritually oriented people, most people did not spend adequate time and energy to really understand and absorb those models, and therefore the next step of doing pathogenesis and healing based upon those models of the mind never actually arose. The question never arose of number 2 and number 3 steps.
Right.
The second part was uh, these models of the mind were very theistic and very open in terms of spirituality. And that was something which was uh, kept at a distance by academic psychoanalysis and academic psychology. So they never wanted to have to do anything with anything that was mystical. They were too paranoid about losing the status of a science. And this uh, what I say this uh, fatal fascination with this fatal fascination and obsession with uh, not losing the title of a science that kept them away from empirically exploring the models of the East. And those were some of the reasons why many of the models proved inadequate, many of the models could not be tested, many of the models could not be understood, and on the whole, it did not contribute adequately to our well-being or to healing.
Right. You have developed your own model of the mind, which you call heat. Can you tell us something about that?
Heat is a intellectual system. HEAT stands for Holistic Elemental Analysis and Therapy. And obviously, we are doing analysis of the mind. Right? We are not doing analysis in astronomy or geology. We are confined to the mind. So HEAT is an intellectual system which has 5 components: philosophy, model of the mind, pathogenesis, healing, and spiritual development. These are the 5 areas which constitute HEAT as a full intellectual system, out of which at present the centerpiece is the model of the mind. I have not put adequate effort on other 4 parts of the system, but at present the focus is on the model of the mind. This model of the mind, which I say HEAT model of the mind, is a fairly complicated model. To understand what are the structural components and how the whole system operates, we will require another half an hour of discussion, which we can do later. But today, I will dwell upon 2 different parts of the HEAT model of the mind. One, an outline of what it is, and 2, what are its general characteristics. So first, what is the outline of the HEAT model of the mind? The HEAT model of the mind integrates the Western models of Freud, Jung, and Eastern models of Tantra and Sri Aurobindo into one framework. On top of that integration, certain new entities are added. So it is not only synthesis, there is new development also. Set at the base, you have the synthesis, but over the synthesis, you add certain new elements also. That is one element of it, that it's a combination of East and West plus new elements added. This is the way it is. Second, uh, it explains the genesis of certain structures with which we are not born, but which are created automatically after our birth. Let us say the whole concept of the collective unconscious and the concept of the archetypes, that we may not be fully born with it, but we are destined to have it, because like many biological processes, which happen automatically after we are born. Similarly, some psychological processes also happen after we are born. And if we look at the mind in a crude way, to say, take analogy from a computer, and we say the hardware, the operating system, and the application software, the office software. Then we are born with the hardware, but some part of the operating system is created after we are born. So heat model of the mind explains the manufacturing process of these psychological entities. How are the archetypes created? What goes into the manufacturing process of the archetype? So first is, it is synthesis of east and west plus things added in terms of the structure. Two, it goes into the manufacturing process of psychological entities, which includes structural entities as well as uh, pathological entities. Third, it brings in certain new concepts, which we will discuss later, but certain new concepts like openness in the psyche, open flow between the psyche and the outside. Okay? New concepts like affinity, like uh, the free and the latent life energy, which may not be new, but at least I think it has not been spoken about for a long time. The model also brings in the epistemology of thought into the psychic process. Right? And this model, what it does is, it takes steps below the classical discussion of psychoanalysis. So in classical psychoanalysis, if we take the example of the fear of attack of the bad breast when the split is open. Now, how would the child think about it step by step? What would be the thoughts at every step? How will positivity and negativity influence? For example, if the child has attacked the breast and the child is very positive, it is possible for the child to think that even though I have attacked, the breast will not attack back because the positivity is so high. Even if the child has attacked to a very small measure, the child may be terrified that the attack is going to be of a very big size and a very torturous nature, because the child has a lot of negativity into him. So if we look at this positivity and negativity in the split process, we can see how the attack is perceived by the child. So what we have done here is, we have taken a Kleinian phenomena and deconstructed that phenomena and gone into the elementals of that phenomena, the epistemology of the psychoanalytic phenomena. So heat model does that, and that is why we call it elemental analysis and therapy. So the heat model gets into the elemental analysis and elemental healing. The heat model also goes into creation of certain concepts, like what are the different types of complexes. Like small complexes happen every day, they heal on their own. We don't have to go to a therapist every day. So there is one group of traumatic experiences which self-erode, which are healed by our autonomous healing system. And there is another group of traumatic events which lifelong traumatize us. They don't erode on their own. Right? The autonomous system cannot heal them on their own. Right? So can we classify these two? Then there are certain traumatic experiences easily healed by thought, certain easily healed by uh, affect release processes, certain easily healed by psychodrama processes, certain easily healed by energy healing processes. Can we classify the different traumas on this basis? So that is another conceptual area that this model tries to open up. So this is something, the outline of the model. Coming to the characteristic, the general characteristics of the model. First, it is a holistic model. It accepts the Eastern way of looking at the psyche as being made of 5 layers of physical body, energy body, emotional body, mental body, karmic body. And at each levels, you have certain tools to heal. So if we have 5 tools at each level, we have a basket of 25 tools, and then from there to create a holistic healing plan for the person. So the first characteristic of this model is it's holistic. Second, it is open. Open in 2 ways. The conceptualization of the personal and collective unconscious is such that there are open spaces through which psychic material can move without interacting with contents of that layer. So something has to go from collective unconscious to the conscious. It does not have to necessarily go through the personal unconscious interacting with the material of the personal unconscious. There are open spaces through which material can move. So it is open in that sense internally. There is also an element of uh, the purpose of the universe, the purpose of earth, and an element of grace and an element of free will of others and the karma of others, all of which flow into the psyche. So there is openness in terms of flow of influences from outside the psyche into the psyche. So the psyche is not isolated system, it is an open system in that sense. So there is, second is holistic, it is open. Third, it is a structural approach, but an open structural approach. I am not very fascinated by this postmodern kind of thinking. I still believe the open structural approach is a good approach. That is third. Fourth, it is spiritual. In the sense, uh, there is no shying away from the spiritual aspect in this model. And fifth, it is a modular model. In the sense, we can have 2 variations of this model. The generic model as it is, which is very conducive or very likable to the believers. But if there is a non-believer, you can remove certain parts of this model, explain certain phenomena in a different way, and use the secular version of this model also. So it's a very modular model where by removing certain parts, reinterpreting certain phenomena, you can have 2 versions, the spiritual version of the model and a secular version of the model. So it's a very modular entity. These are some of the general characteristics. And yes, very importantly, it is completely based upon elemental analysis and holistic healing. That you don't stop at psychoanalytic phenomena, you deconstruct the psychoanalytic phenomena into its constituents. And then look at a very elemental level, as elemental as you can go, and see what needs to be set right. And to set it right, use a basket of holistic healing tools. So this is how I can say we can describe a general outline, some features, and some general characteristics of this model.
How do you see this heat model being used for psychoanalysis and psychotherapy?
The first is, I think we need to restart an interest in developing the model of the mind. It has got out of fashion in psychoanalysis. So hopefully it will restart, rekindle that interest in people to again start thinking in terms of model of the mind in psychoanalysis. And this time, by trying to integrate all that already exists there, so many schools which are there. Second, I believe it will bring into psychoanalysis much of the Eastern wisdom and Eastern healing tools. Three, I think we will be able to do pathogenesis in a much better and wider way. Fourth, it will bring in epistemology back into psychoanalysis, which should have been brought in much earlier, unfortunately has not been. And fifth, I think uh, we have unfortunately lost focus on two very important elements in psychoanalysis. First, the nature and the constitution of the complex. Whatever is troubling us in the unconscious, what is it like? What is its nature? So if it was a physical object, we would talk about shape, size, color, and form. It's a psychological object, but what are its features? We have not focused upon that. So an inquiry into the core entity which troubles us, which we call the complex for want of another word, that will be rekindled by this. It will bring in an elemental analysis, and one more element we have not focused upon is this very simple uh, sequential conceptual structure of affect, which I say is affect generation, affect expression, affect regulation, and symptom formation. So first affect is generated, a part of that affect is expressed, whatever is not expressed is regulated by defenses, and if defenses cannot regulate it, it passes on to create symptoms. And this is true essentially for negative affect. We are not talking about positive affect. So then we go into the next phase of, if we take affect generation, what are the factors involved there? Affect regulation, what is involved? Symptom formation, what is involved? So an inquiry into these three areas is something I think Heat has already done, but it will rekindle an interest in details of these areas and take us into an elemental understanding of these three processes, which I believe are very important to really study pathogenesis, to arrive at holistic healing, and look at which school works best for which type of complex, and how that can be understood in these terms of affect generation, affect regulation, uh, symptom affect expression, regulation, and symptom formation. And if we understand this well, we should be moving around to the goal of holistic healing of next 25 years, to create a grid of personality, pathology, intensity, and the holistic healing method.
How do you see the heat model being used in the area of management and spirituality?
In spirituality, it would be like rekindling the interest in what was called in ancient times Bhut Shuddhi, the purification of elementals. It is already an ancient concept of Tantra and also of yoga. I think on this point, both of them are together. And second is, it can be used for setting right the abnormal part of the seekers. Because in many schools, seekers do very well in terms of their normal and supernormal aspects, but they are not comfortable dealing with the abnormal part of their personality. Third, I think it will validate lot of spiritual concepts, and they will be able to then use it more scientifically and in a more creative way. In terms of management, uh, in consumer behavior, organizational behavior, and in strategy to some extent, uh, this model can be used for those who are interested in very elemental kind of studies, very foundational studies. So those studies will lead to something applied. That is one area where this can be used. I can easily see the use in areas of motivation, uh, teamwork, and to some extent in consumer behavior, especially in advertisements and brand management. So those are some of the areas where this model can travel out of psychoanalysis. In fact, in anthropology and in sociology also, there is a very good scope, and also for behavioral economics, there is a good scope for taking this model out and seeing how it works. But my feeling is, before it goes there, it needs a passport well within psychoanalysis.
Okay. How do you see this heat model developing in future?
Not hear it.
Hello.
Yes, Priya. Can you repeat it? I
Hello.
could not hear it.
Yeah, yeah. How do you see the heat model developing in future?
Uh, First, I think is uh, how do we make it an internally consistent model? So I hope that there is no dissonance inside the model when we put together these theories. So first is the test of internal consistency. Second, I believe, is offering explanations to the pathology and healing that we already are doing. Third will be empirical testing. And fourth will be measurement of elementals. And fifth will be measurement of the efficacy of holistic healing tools on various uh, personalities and intensity of whatever problem we are dealing with, so that we reach that grid that we want of personality, pathology, intensity, and efficacy of a particular method or a combination of method. So my feeling is it will develop in those lines. But the first thing would be it will rekindle the interest again in this area of psychoanalysis of developing the model of the mind. And my feeling also is many people from the East and those interested in East-West confluence will see a new starting point to conceptualize and theorize further in whatever area they are in. And lastly, it will bring about uh, new tools for healing up for scientific validation. For example, awareness, uh, the effect of mantra, the effect of idol therapy, the effect of some Ayurvedic herbs, the effect of homeopathy. If we are able to measure the elementals right, we can see effect of these things on the elementals in a much clearer way. And that will result in development of new tools and new healing methods, and of course, a new conceptual way of looking at the psyche.
Thank you, Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Today we have covered the topic of heat model of the mind. In our upcoming videos, we'll be talking about more topics in psychoanalysis. Meanwhile, do write to us at hvindia@gmail.com. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.